So tell me how an indie game built in just 4 weeks is outperforming half of the AAA industry in 2025. Can you guess which game it is? You know what? Actually, can you guess which games they are? Because at this point it's multiple. The industry is being outperformed by multiple small studios, so much so that it shouldn't even be considered a rare occurrence anymore or an outlier. It's predictable. So let's dive into how indie games are single-handedly saving multiplayer gaming. XDefi and Multiversus Concord. My god, Concord, you're cooked, bro. The $400 million failure, along with many other live service games that shut down or are shutting down in the upcoming months due to insufficient player base or lack of profitability. These are all games created by major publishers that failed to deliver on consumer expectations. Now, I'd like to point out that Multiversus actually didn't fail in our expectations and had potential to be another great crossover fighter like Mortal Kombat, Injustice, Super Smash Bros, or whatever. Not to mention that it was free. No, Multiversus was just a fluke, a simple mistake in the eyes of Warner Bros that they could just erase and wish away like it never happened. Well, guess what? It did happen. They clearly saw more success from titles like Harry Potter Quidditch Champions or Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. You know, it's funny because I went to Warner Bros site to see if Multiversus was still listed, even though it's developed by First Player Games, which ironically Warner Bros bought out. And nope, it's gone. Just like that, like it never happened. Gone just like it disappeared from your personal library of video games. See, this is actually an example of a failure by the corporation and its leaders who refuse to double down on the things that we like and we have fun with. 4 key words: we have fun with. Don't ever let them hear you say that, because they will run in the opposite direction. They are truly allergic to fun, they are allergic to making good games, and apparently they are allergic to success. Instead, they choose to double, triple, quadruple down on failed strategies. They are truly Vegas's worst odds. We can all name a few, and we can all talk about the shit that they've shoved down our throats over these past couple of years, but one stink particularly comes to mind, and I think we all know what that smelly smell is. So let's all say it in 3, 2, 1. EA. Now, you may not have said EA. You could have said Microsoft or Ubisoft or some other corporation that blames poor performance on high expectations and negative feedback from gamers. But in this case, I hold a special grudge in my heart for EA that has absolutely nothing to do with how they've handled the Star Wars license over the past decade.
Stop the cap.
At this rate, there will be 5 Battlefield games for every 1 Battlefront. Do you remember how I said they tripled down on failed strategies? Because yeah, the reports are in. They want to make a new Battlefield every year similar to Call of Duty because that obviously works. Seriously, EA. You. I'm glad you don't have the Star Wars license anymore. Somebody else can give us Battlefront 3, but for now, Kyber will be saving us, and I'm happy with that. Speaking of Kyber, in other news, studios making games with smaller timelines, teams, and budgets are finding huge success. So tell me why an indie game built in just 4 weeks with a handful of developers on one platform with less than 1% of the budget is outperforming half of the AAA industry in 2025. Can you guess which game that is? Now, to be fair, there are actually several games that are outperforming the industry, especially in the multiplayer co-op space. But if you're like me, then you could have said Lethal Company, the horror co-op extraction game made by a solo dev in his bedroom that has, by the way, sold over 10 million copies, likely grossing over $100 million in revenue by now, if I had to guess, pre-Steam cut. And it's still getting active updates and ongoing support for free. Or you could have said Chained Together, a $5 game on Steam with a simple concept. You're bound together, make it to the end. It peaked at over 90,000 concurrent players and attracted the likes of Kai, Speed, and many other well-known streamers who supported it. Or maybe you said Schedule 1, the simulation game that allows you to build out and grow your own distribution business. A very creative and bold choice, also made by a solo dev that paid off big. By the way, this game also features a co-op multiplayer mode, so if you ever wanted to live out your biggest power fantasy, you can go ahead and let that snowfall as Tommy or Ghost. Honestly, it's kind of a trick question because there are so many indie games that came out in 2025 that meet this criteria, but the game that I'm thinking of is actually Peak. So let's talk about Peak. If you didn't know, Peak is literally just a climbing game. That is it. No $100 million open world, no Hollywood actors, you literally just climb some rocks with your friends. But the thing is, it just works. Like, the gameplay loop is ridiculously simple, but it's satisfying. You've got stamina tied to hunger, so every decision matters. Tools like rope cannons that actually require teamwork and not fake teamwork like revive me faster, but the we all die unless someone knows how to use this rope properly, and steep obstacles where one misclick means your entire squad is cartwheeling down a mountain. Peak isn't just some tense experience, it's also funny. You could be dead silent 1 second and screaming the next because your boy slipped, died, and is now a ghost that's following you around and wishing the worst. But in my mind, the one thing that really stood out was the social loop. I think proximity-based chat is what takes this game to the next level, and we're actually starting to see this feature more and more in indie development. So this feature makes it to where you don't just see your friend fall 200 feet, you actually hear it. until you don't.
Hi,
Hi.
guys.
Does anybody need food? Thank you.
Were you not holding right click?
That was such a real fucking scream.
That was dramatic. I had her and then it let go.
The amount of engagement that something like this provides is insane. We all know that millennials and Gen Zers love content, and you definitely get content from this. It's also very repeatable. You know, the story about how this game got made should actually be documented and studied by major corporations. AggroCrab is a small studio with a couple of games under its belt that had just lost funding for one of their projects. Looking to shake things up a bit, AggroCrab decided to take a couple of steps back and build something smaller. I actually love this because they said ideally they wanted to build something fun and silly. So during this time of research and discovery, they looked to partner with their friend at Landfall Games, who had just come off the success of Content Warning, which by the way was also built in 4 weeks at a game jam in Korea. Curious. The two studios decided to collaborate and use that same development process that they used to build Content Warning to build their new untitled project that would ultimately be called Peak. Now, I want to be very clear. The core Peak was developed during a 1-month sprint, but just like every other project, it did take a couple of months of polishing before the game was ready to release publicly. So a few months later, Peak drops on Steam for $8 and absolutely blew up. Within the first 24 hours, Peak sold 100K copies. First week, 1 million copies, and today they have sold over 10 million copies. That is actually insane to think about, considering that the game had such a limited marketing campaign, if one at all. Now for sales comparison, this puts Peak in the same company as Horizon Zero Dawn, Monster Hunter World, and God of War. All games with bigger marketing budgets than Peak's entire lifetime revenue. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, I'm gonna go ahead and say that Game of the Year award winners like The Last of Us Part 2 and Baldur's Gate 3 sold within the same range of copies. That's actually crazy to think about. So what the hell did this game do that made it so special? The devs didn't need a $400 million flop like Concord, and they didn't need a 10-year live service plan so they could turn a failing game series into a platform. All they said was, what if we made falling off of rocks hilarious and rewarding? And us as gamers said, take my money. And that's the answer. Peak does one thing incredibly well. It's focused, it's packaged well, and it knows exactly what it is. So for all of you AAA studios out there juggling 20 half-baked ideas that you want to pack into a game unfinished and ship out to us as paid DLC, you should try just doing one thing well first. Exceptionally well. So this is what makes Peak the perfect case study. It's proof that many indies don't just make small side projects anymore. Yes, I get it. Some games are simple and straightforward, but they work and they are priced accordingly to their value. To be honest, I'd be willing to pay these games more just to see a sequel or whatever add-on content that they want to provide, just because they showed us that they cared. So I want to speak to all of the corporations right now that are blaming gamers for poor performance and lack of profitability when I say this. Instead of looking at your metric trying to see how you can manipulate them to appeal to your shareholders, you should be studying how these indie games are swiping your You should be studying how these indie games are setting the new standard for gaming. Study how they build games that we want to play. Study how they know what fun is. Because you obviously don't. When you look across the board at games like Lethal Company, Chained Together, Schedule One, or even Among Us, small teams doing one thing exceptionally well and making AAA studios look like clowns with big wallets. It's the same across the board. And that's exactly why indies aren't just making hits, they're saving gaming. If you enjoyed this breakdown, then hit that like button, it really helps the channel. And if you want more unfiltered takes like this, make sure to subscribe, honestly, so you don't miss the next one. Now, quick plug-in, I'm building something called Player 3. It's a new free gaming platform for indie developers and gaming creators to share their updates, build a community, and actually earn support without needing a big publisher. And if you're a gamer, you can find all of the latest ad-free gaming content and updates. It's built around a personal mission of mine, as well as many others. I think it's truly time to put games back into gamers' hands. Together, I believe that us gamers can power gaming. If you're an indie developer or you know of an indie developer who deserves more support, check out this video linked here or here, one of them, I don't know. But I go into more detail about how Player 3 helps game developers earn directly from their community. Really is for gaming in general, so if you're making any type of gaming content, you can earn from Player 3. But yeah, until next time, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.